Kayla Petrie, and I am a marine biology student.
I'm Dr. Roxanne Bach, and I teach math at Florida Southern. I teach a variety of classes, usually Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, but I also teach proofs, which is really the gateway course to upper level math. I've taught social world algorithms, I'm teaching prob and stats, so it just depends on the semester.
Hi, my name's Allie and I'm a second-year math major at Florida Southern College.
I am Dr. Shamika Shelby, and I teach organic chemistry, biochemistry, and general chemistry, but I'm a biochemist by training.
My beliefs and aspirations changed while I grew up because of my family dynamics. My family was really in tune with what was happening in the world, and they wanted to push me to better myself and set goals and chase my dreams. So when I was younger, I decided I really liked marine biology, and then I kind of talked myself out of it, or tried to talk myself out of it, because I knew it was such a limited field, and it was kind of male dominated. So my parents just reinforced me that if this was my dream, that I should chase it.
Through high school and even through college, I guess I was always good at math, but it didn't seem like it was anything special. There were girls in my class, and I had female teachers, and I didn't really notice the difference in the different genders, I guess, in math and in higher ed until I got to graduate school. And there were very few women, and very few, in fact I only had one female teacher in graduate school for one class of all of my 7 years that I took classes. And looking back, that's really surprising. At the time, I guess I didn't notice it that much. But in grad school, yeah, you start to see the difference. From the master's program to the PhD program, there's less and less women.
So I have wanted to be a scientist since I was a little girl, and I know it sounds really cliche to say, but it's really true. I remember being, maybe 8 years old, and asked what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to be a scientist. And so that kind of changed as I went through high school and thought about being a medical doctor, but then lo and behold, right here I am back actually being a scientist. But I really got involved in science, or was interested in science as a little girl, because my mother's 3 sisters, and actually 4 sisters, all had sickle cell anemia. So one died when she was a child, and then one of my other aunts died maybe about 5 years ago or so. But as a child, I kind of watched them go through their episodes and the pain, and just basically seeing how they dealt with it, and that there was no really effective treatment. It really drove me into wanting to go into some sort of disease-related field to try and figure out hey, how can we fix this? What can we do to kind of help people in these situations? And so as kind of time went on, and I learned more and more, I'm still interested in disease-based research, not so much specifically sickle cell anemia, because there's been some changes in the field that have kind of helped a little bit. There's still no cure. But as a biochemist, I learned exactly what it is, exactly what's going on in people's bodies who actually are afflicted with the disease, and so that kind of led me to want to find out more about disease-based research. And so that's essentially still what I do till today, is disease-based research. So instead of being really interested in the sickle cell anemia specifically, now I'm in vision. And so basically I'm trying to figure out a mechanism for how our retinas actually recycle one of its major components, which is your photoreceptors. They're the tops of the photoreceptors after they've been damaged every day. And that's something that happens for the rest of your life and is really required for vision. So there's lots of diseases that can result from malfunction of that process. And so I still study that process.
I think the factors that affect the amount of women in STEM is just how society deems women from past generations, I guess. Like, women weren't really doing much except for like living and working in the house and working in communications and stuff. And now they're branching out, and there's female doctors, and women are just fighting for equality. And I think that once society portrays women in like the STEM fields, like we can really fight and, you know, chase our dreams.
I think maybe just the culture that women aren't as encouraged to go into STEM field jobs, and probably because they don't have as many role models. You know, I was fortunate to have a math professor who was a female, and she's really the only reason I went on to be where I am today. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have. And I think women need to probably reach out more to their female students and let them know that it's possible for them to go on and do whatever they want to do.
There's definitely a lot less women in STEM than men, and I think one of the factors that causes that is that women aren't really encouraged as much as men to pursue STEM. Like, you see a lot of toys and stuff and Barbies that say, math is hard, or like, I want to be a teacher or nurse. So women are pushed in a different direction that's not STEM and are kind of discouraged from it. Even like I face, like, when I tell people I'm a math major and physics minor, people are like, whoa, that's so hard. But like, if a guy says that, there's not that same reaction. Society's influence on you or on people is a factor that creates a disproportionate amount of men and women in STEM.
One of those things, definitely, there's been tons of studies done that has shown that environments in first-year courses definitely impact or females persisting in science. There's a lot of stereotypes, and to be frank, a lot of people who actually are teaching those science courses don't necessarily, you know, look like females, or, well, they aren't females, right? And so a lot of it can be helped just by having other women in front of the classroom so they can see, hey, that this is something that's, you know, attainable. This person's kind of living it and being it, and not, you know, so different from them, or difference in terms of where they came from or abilities or anything like that. Here, right, we're a little bit lucky because we have a lot more women faculty, and even just thinking about chemistry, like, we have quite a few women in our department, which is kind of abnormal if you think about it, kind of everywhere else. But also even in terms of persisting, right? Lots of students tend to kind of fall into what they call a leaky pipeline because of a couple of different reasons. Like I said, one of those things is not being able to actually see someone in front of you that's teaching you that looks like you. Also with kind of the atmosphere in the courses, that as Americans, I think we tend to have this idea that, you know, a really smart scientist is, you know, a man with a white jacket on, right? And that he's in the lab cooking up some really cool stuff, you know. Whereas in reality, lots of women are definitely kind of taking that next step and are, you know, obtaining master's degrees and PhDs. And we're really part of the larger workforce when you talk about, at least for biomedical science, we definitely are increasing our numbers. But it's going to take some time for us to kind of be able to make it to the point to where we can actually, like I said, have lots of us in front of the classroom versus kind of behind the scenes, which is, I think, lots of what's going on now.
I think we can involve more girls in STEM by implementing STEM programs in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, because I know where I came from. The year I graduated, my high school put in a STEM program, and I was very upset that I didn't get to participate in it, but I know a lot of younger girls look forward to that. My cousin plans to take it, and she's a 6th grader right now, so I think just implementing that young and early on is a great way to get girls involved.
I think we can get more girls and women involved in STEM by really highlighting other women that have achieved great things in STEM, whether that's someone like Katherine Johnson, who worked on like Mission to the Moon and things like that, so that we have role models for girls to look up to. So if we really promote them and emphasize them, then hopefully girls can aspire to be like them. And also I had some great role models that kind of pushed me into STEM and then made sure I continued in STEM. So looking up to certain professors and things like that made sure that I didn't switch out of it.
Some kind of outreach. One thing that I'm really passionate about is actually getting girls involved in science younger. So you, or hopefully most students now have kind of this interaction with science at an early age. But I don't think they tend to see options in careers for science. So it's like if you major in science, it's like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor or I'm going to be a researcher. But the reality of it is that there's so many things that you can do with a science degree, but we don't really do a good enough job at actually telling students like, hey, these are all of the things that you can do. You could actually go into public policy as a scientist. There's so many options and we just don't relay that well enough. But especially, like I said, in high schools, I love to, when I have a chance, go to high schools or go to middle schools and even elementary schools, so then they can kind of see, like, girls kind of get that idea early on, like, hey, you know, it's a woman, she's a scientist, I can be that, or I can do something similar to that. So I think outreach is one of the biggest ways that we can do it. But another way is when we get, you know, students in that seat when they come here. Their experience is going to decide a lot about the future, right? So if you don't have a great experience in your first science class, chances are you're not going to stick around. You're not going to say, oh, despite having a really terrible experience in my chemistry class, I am going to take lots and lots of chemistry, right? So those first impressions really matter, and so we need to work harder at basically doing the best that we can with those first impressions to really illustrate, like I said, what science really is. And it's tough to do that, you know, just depending on the circumstance, but that's going to take some organizational change for us to be able to do that.
I am very passionate about marine life and conservation, and I think what drew me to the STEM field was just the fact that I got to work with both sides of that. I know being in the sciences, I can work with learning more about marine life, and then I can also incorporate my passion with conservation, kind of blend them together.
So as an undergraduate student, I didn't know what I wanted to major in or what I wanted to do after school. I had a list of every occupation you could think of as a possibility, and I finally decided on math. And I had a professor who told me about graduate school, and I didn't even know what graduate school was until she talked to me and said, in math in particular, you can go on and they will pay for your school, and if you teach a class as a teaching assistant, they'll pay you small stipend, but enough to live on. And I really liked school, so I thought that was a great opportunity for me. And I went on to get my PhD, and now I'm still in school, but teaching, and I love it.
In the STEM field, I'm passionate about things like astronomy and math and physics, and just in general the whole problem-solving aspect of things. But also I'm really passionate about promoting STEM for girls too. I hope to be a role model so that girls can look up to me and see that girls can do STEM and girls are smart and are just as capable.